Estranged mother left us for a life in the adult industry, but now won't stop pressuring me to let her back in. My dad, a 67-year-old man, used to travel constantly for work, sometimes disappearing for weeks at a time. Because of that, he and my mother came to an understanding, a sort of open marriage, though as far as I ever knew, she was the only one seeing other people. For most of my childhood, I'd watch her get dressed up at night, rushing off to clubs and parties. Sometimes, she'd be gone for days. My brother and I were left behind so often that by the time I was 8, I'd already learned how to get groceries and cook just to keep us from starving. Around the time I turned 13, their marriage started to deteriorate. The two of them fought constantly. My dad finally found out about the neglect, and I guess she'd broken whatever agreement they had because it all blew up into chaos. At the same time, she started getting involved in the adult industry. The fights between my parents became daily, and soon after, they separated completely. For years after that, I had no contact with my mother. I would send her texts, even emails, sometimes seeing she'd seen them, never a reply. Eventually, I just gave up trying to reach her. I did my best to stay connected to her side of the family, but over time many of them started blaming me and my brother. They accused us of being too harsh on her, said she was better off leaving us, and over time those connections faded until they disappeared completely. Meanwhile, my mother became quite famous in my country through her work in the adult industry. She made a lot of money and was suddenly everywhere. I couldn't even visit NSFW websites without seeing her plastered all over the front page. Thankfully, I avoided the worst of high school bullying because hardly anyone in my circles recognized her. She had changed her appearance so much with hair dyes and surgery that most people who knew her didn't connect her to me. Eventually, I moved on with my life. I joined the army and built a decent life for myself. Then, about a year ago, she suddenly found me on social media. Out of nowhere, she started messaging, asking how I was, commenting on how much I'd grown, trying to make small talk. I kept my answers short, one-word replies at best. Eventually my nerves got the better of me, and I stopped responding altogether. I learned that she had finally retired, and now, apparently overwhelmed by remorse for what she had done, she wanted to reconnect. My brother, who had always stayed closer to her, accepted her back with caution. My father is polite but keeps his distance. Then the messages started. Her whole family, those who once condemned me, and even those who supported us, started bombarding me with calls and texts, pressuring me to forgive her. They said she was truly sorry now, that everyone makes mistakes, and she wanted to make things right. No matter how many times I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with her, they just kept pushing, that she was remorseful and dedicated to making amends. More recently, things got weirder. She somehow found out where I live. Suddenly, random gifts started showing up at my door, always with an unmistakably personal touch. Baskets of expensive chocolate like the kind I loved as a kid. Pricey clothes, though she got my sizes entirely wrong, which honestly made me laugh. When my cat died, a bouquet of flowers arrived. Once, a top-of-the-line hiking kit appeared on my porch. Every time, I messaged her and told her to stop. She never acknowledged my requests, either pretending not to know what I was talking about or saying she was just thinking of me in that moment. No matter how many times I say I want nothing to do with her, she continues to insist she can be my mom again now, as if all those years of absence could simply melt away. Update 1. I decided to take the moral high ground and approach the situation with as much politeness as possible. Many people in my life probably expected me to just send my mother to hell with a nasty message or letter, but I knew that being calm and composed would likely catch her off guard, and maybe even quiet some of her supportive family members who wouldn't stop interfering. I called her up and asked her to meet me at a small, busy cafe. There was absolutely no way I was meeting her in private. When she arrived, it was almost nauseating how happy she looked, beaming with a smile so wide you'd think she'd won the lottery. She was literally bouncing up and down with excitement. But that smile faded the instant she met my eyes. She tried to start with small talk, acting like nothing had ever happened. I cut her off immediately, refusing to play along, and started raining on her parade. As calmly and patiently as I could, I told her there was absolutely nothing she could say or do to ever be my mom again. I told her she was basically a stranger to me at this point, that all these years had built up resentment and distance, and reminded her that it wasn't for lack of trying. I'd reached out many times, and she refused to respond. Finally, I told her I was no longer a child. I'm almost 30 and have long stopped needing a mother figure. I had to bite my tongue so I wouldn't say something vicious, like a little late for that, don't you think? She didn't even let me finish before she completely broke down, bursting into tears and incoherently apologizing, saying she was sorry for not watching me grow up, sorry she ignored me, begging for another chance. She offered to erase everything from her old work that bothered me and pay for therapy if that's what I wanted, as if she hadn't realized I've been in therapy since my teenage years because of her choices. I refused politely, realizing there was nothing more to say, and stood to leave. Before walking away, I asked her one more time, clearly and firmly, not to contact me again. A couple hours later, while I was in the shower, my phone exploded with calls and texts. Apparently, she had already run to the rest of her family and set them on me again, cursing and pleading. That was the last straw. It was proof that the more radical advice I'd heard about dealing with her was not so unreasonable after all. I took their suggestions to heart, changed my phone number to something private, and got a much better phone plan for my own sanity, purged every family connection from her side off my social media, and instructed my lawyer to push forward with a restraining order. Thankfully, I'd already prepared all the paperwork. She received the restraining order a few days later and immediately violated it. She drove straight to my house, screaming in the street about why I was doing this to her. I didn't even go outside. Instead, I called the cops. I half expected them to brush it off, but to my relief, they took the order seriously and hauled her to the station for questioning. Now I'm living with some level of peace, though I sometimes wonder if cutting her off so completely was the right move. She still tries to send gifts, but I'm handling that legally as well. At least now I know I'm finally enforcing the boundaries I needed all along. Update 2. I wasn't really planning to share any more updates, but lately my inbox has exploded. Apparently my story made it onto YouTube, and now I'm getting flooded daily with messages. It's a bit surreal watching all this attention snowball, but alongside it, things at home have gotten even wilder. Right now, my mother is actually taking legal action to fight the restraining order I filed against her. I honestly didn't even know that was something people could do, but here we are. On my end, I've been working with my lawyer to pursue restraining orders against some of the more unhinged members of her family. My lawyer warned me, if I ask for orders against 20+ people, I'm going to look like a lunatic, and the court will just throw it all out, so I have to be cautious and strategic. She hasn't physically violated the restraining order again since the last incident, but the gifts keep coming. If anything, they've actually ramped up. It's become a steady onslaught. Rather than let her antics get to me or pile up, I've just started donating everything. My childhood might have been a mess, but now at least I can turn this situation around. There are a lot of kids out there who are now enjoying an absurd amount of chocolate, thanks to my mother's never-ending deliveries. Some good, at least, is coming out of this chaos. And for what seems like the 100th time, I am not revealing her name. The messages I keep getting asking for her identity, or for links, or other nonsense, it's not happening. Not for her sake, but because I'm not about to get doxxed over this entire mess. If anyone crosses that line, I'm blocking them without a second thought. I'm really not sure if I'll post another update or how long it might be if I do, but if anything big happens, I'll share it. Thanks again to everyone who's reached out with support and advice. It's meant a lot during this roller coaster. Update 3. Life has truly been a roller coaster these last few years. Time slipped by, chaotic and relentless, and piecing it all together now, my memory feels a little patched and fuzzy. Let me try to lay it out as best as possible, though events might spill out of order. Right after I left off, things were tense. My mom had reached the absolute limit of pushiness, but at least, thanks to the restraining order, she was forced to keep her distance. Of course, that didn't mean she vanished. I remember one family dinner at my dad's house, that kind of rare night when things actually felt calm for a change. Suddenly, the doorbell rang and everyone stiffened a little without knowing why. My dad's then girlfriend, now his wife, opened the door, only to find my mother on the step, radiating determination. That encounter set everyone on edge for weeks. She didn't stop there. Another day, while I was at work, serving in the army, of all places, she showed up on the base, asking for me. One of my buddies was on guard duty that day, and when he realized who she was, he just quietly made it crystal clear she wasn't welcome. That guy, shouting her off with a shotgun, remains one of the highlights of my army days. Those friends are probably the only thing about the army I really miss. My career, though, wasn't going anywhere like I hoped. I kept getting passed over for promotion, feeling the sting every time another name got called instead of mine. I applied for officer school again and again, but my requests were always flatly denied, no reason given, no encouragement. As if that wasn't enough, my girlfriend at the time blindsided me, cheated on me and dumped me all at once. It was like sitting in the eye of a hurricane, watching the world fall apart. The years crawled past, and just when I thought maybe, just maybe, my luck was about to turn, a promotion finally seeming within reach, the whole thing came crashing down. The army let me go, along with plenty of others, and I was left jobless and numb, returning to my dad's place because I simply had nowhere else to go. Starting over felt impossible. Right around that time, the restraining order against my mom expired. She came back into my life with a renewed energy, and all her old chaos rushed back in, mixing with my crumbling plans and confused heart. It didn't make anything easier. There's still so much more to say, but that's all I have the energy for at the moment. Maybe I'll come back around to the rest of the story another time. For now, I hope you have a good weekend. Update 4. My situation is a bit better than it was just a short while ago. There's a chance I'll finally finish college next year. The army really screwed up my plans, especially when it came to scheduling classes, but I'm determined to see it through. Let's see how things unfold. There's still a mountain of issues in front of me. Trying to cobble together cash to pay off some debts just to keep daily life ticking along is a constant stress, and honestly, with everything going on, I don't even have time to think about dating. My romantic life? Dead and buried, at least for now. On a brighter note, I had to switch therapists recently. My new therapist specializes in treating families of famous people, oddly specific, but it's actually been really beneficial so far. The new therapist is discreet, thank God for that, and while it's crazy expensive, I was lucky enough to get a bit of help from my old army buddy who works there and managed to get me in. Seriously, I owe him for that one. Now, for the elephant in the room, the ongoing circus that is my situation with my mom. It's a total roller coaster, but at least the ride hasn't completely derailed yet. Most of the time, she keeps her distance and just sends the occasional text or a letter on special dates like Christmas or my birthday. Every once in a while, though, she'll pull off something wild, like trying to sneak into family gatherings where she knows I'll be. Twice, she's caused a huge scene drunk outside my dad's house. Things have calmed down a bit lately, though. She hasn't been quite as intense with the contact attempts, which meant I couldn't get the restraining order renewed this time. Hard to know how long that will last, with her unpredictability, and that's where things stand for now. Update 5. I thought things were settling into some kind of routine, mom keeping her distance, me focusing on finishing college, therapy helping me process everything. I should have known better than to expect peace to last. About 3 weeks ago, I met someone. Sarah works at the campus library, and we'd been having these casual conversations that gradually turned into coffee dates. Nothing serious yet, but for the first time in years, I felt like maybe I could actually connect with someone without all my baggage getting in the way. She didn't know about my family situation, and honestly, that felt like a relief. Everything changed last Tuesday. I was walking Sarah to her car after we'd grabbed dinner, our fourth real date, when I noticed this woman sitting in a black SUV across the street. My blood went cold the second I recognized her. My mother had been watching us, probably for who knows how long. Sarah noticed me tense up and asked what was wrong, but before I could answer, Mom got out of the car and started walking toward us. I grabbed Sarah's hand and practically dragged her to her car, telling her we needed to leave immediately. She was confused and a little scared, but she got in and locked the doors. Mom reached us just as Sarah was starting the engine, and she began tapping on the window, smiling that same, unsettling smile from the cafe years ago. She was mouthing I just want to meet her and gesturing for Sarah to roll down the window. I told Sarah to drive. Now. The next day, I had to explain everything to Sarah, who my mother was, the restraining order, all of it. I expected her to run. Instead, she got angry on my behalf, which honestly caught me off guard. She asked if there was anything she could do to help, and I told her the best thing was just to be careful and let me know if she noticed anyone following her. That's when things got worse. Sarah started getting friend requests on social media from fake profiles, all middle-aged women with generic names and stock photos. Then the messages started. At first, they seemed innocent enough, your boyfriend seems like such a nice young man or you two look so happy together. But they escalated quickly. Someone was telling Sarah all these twisted stories about my childhood, claiming I was damaged and would never be able to love properly because of abandonment issues. The breaking point came yesterday. Sarah called me, crying, saying someone had sent her photos, old family pictures that I'd never seen before, including some from when I was really young. But mixed in were screenshots of conversations between my mother and her family members, talking about Sarah specifically. They were discussing her job, her schedule, even her address. Someone had been doing research. I drove straight to Sarah's place. When I got there, she showed me everything on her phone. The messages had gotten graphic. Someone was describing in detail what my mother's work in the adult industry had been like, claiming that this runs in families and that I was probably just like her. The final message was a photo of Sarah's apartment building with the caption, "Such a shame she's gotten mixed up with the wrong family." That was it. Sarah was terrified, and I don't blame her. I spent the night on her couch because she was too scared to be alone, and this morning I drove her to stay with her sister in the next city over. I'm back at my dad's place now, and I've been on the phone with my lawyer all afternoon. Apparently, harassment through third parties can still be considered a violation of restraining order terms, but proving my mother is behind these fake accounts is going to be complicated. My lawyer says we have enough for a new restraining order application, especially with the photo of Sarah's building, but the process could take weeks. My dad saw how shaken up I was when I got home and finally told me something he'd been keeping to himself. Apparently, my mother had called him last month, asking about my new girlfriend and whether I seemed happy. He'd hung up on her, but now we both realized she'd been planning this. I don't know what's going to happen with Sarah and me. She says she wants to work through this, but I can see the fear in her eyes. She shouldn't have to deal with this insanity just because she decided to date me. Part of me wonders if my mother planned it this way, if she knew that getting involved with someone I cared about would be the perfect way to control my life again. I'm supposed to graduate in 6 months. I just want to finish school, build a normal life, maybe have a normal relationship, but every time I think I'm moving forward, she finds a new way to drag me back into her chaos. The worst part? I keep thinking about those messages Sarah received, the ones about how I'll never be able to love properly. What if they're right? Update 6. I never thought I'd be writing another update this soon, but the last 2 weeks have been absolutely insane. Sarah and I have been trying to make things work despite everything, but my mother somehow managed to make the situation even worse than I thought possible. After Sarah went to stay with her sister, I thought maybe we'd have some breathing room to figure things out. We were texting constantly, video calling every night, and she seemed determined not to let my mother's harassment drive us apart. I was starting to feel hopeful again. Maybe we could actually get through this together. Then last Friday happened. Sarah came back to town because she had to work her shift at the library. I offered to pick her up, stay with her, whatever she needed, but she insisted she'd be fine for just one day. She promised to text me every hour and said she'd drive straight back to her sister's place after work. Around 2 p.m., my phone started buzzing with calls from an unknown number. I ignored the first few, but when it kept happening, I finally answered. It was Sarah, but she was using someone else's phone, and she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "She's here," Sarah kept saying. "She's here and she won't leave me alone." Apparently, my mother had shown up at the library during Sarah's lunch break. Not inside, she was smart enough to stay in the parking lot, but she'd positioned herself right by Sarah's car, waiting. When Sarah came out, my mother approached her with this whole performance about how she just wanted to talk and explain her side of the story. Sarah tried to ignore her and get to her car, but my mother blocked her path. She started talking about how I was damaged and would never commit to anyone because of my childhood. But then she said something that made my blood run cold. She told Sarah that she knew about her parents' divorce when Sarah was 12. She knew about Sarah's dad's drinking problem. She knew that Sarah's mom had struggled financially as a single parent. She knew details that I didn't even know, things Sarah had never told me because we were still in the early stages of dating. My mother had been researching Sarah's entire family. But here's where it gets really twisted. My mother then offered to pay off Sarah's student loans, all of them, if Sarah would just step away from me. She said I needed to focus on healing and that Sarah was just going to get hurt by getting involved with someone from such a complicated family. Sarah recorded most of this conversation on her phone, thank God. She'd started recording the moment my mother approached her car, probably thinking of the legal implications. The audio is crystal clear, my mother's voice, the bribery attempt, everything. I drove to the library immediately, but by the time I got there, my mother was gone and Sarah was inside with her supervisor, still shaking. We went straight to the police station with the recording. Here's the thing that really got to me, my mother wasn't wrong about some of what she said. Sarah does have student loans. Her family did struggle financially. And maybe I am too damaged for a normal relationship. But the fact that my mother had invaded Sarah's privacy to that extent, that she'd researched her family's personal struggles just to use them as ammunition, it made me realize how far she's willing to go. The police took the report seriously, especially with the recording. My lawyer says this is a clear violation of the restraining order and that the bribery attempt actually strengthens our case significantly. We're filing for an extended restraining order and potentially looking at stalking charges. But that's not even the craziest part. Yesterday, Sarah's sister called me. Apparently, someone had contacted her workplace. Sarah's sister works as a nurse at a hospital 2 hours away, claiming to be from a family crisis intervention service. They said Sarah was in an abusive relationship and that her family needed to help her see the truth. They gave specific details about my mother's situation, my army discharge, even mentioned my therapy appointments. My mother is now targeting Sarah's entire family, trying to turn them against me. The weird thing is, it's almost working in reverse. Sarah's sister was initially suspicious of me when Sarah first mentioned she was dating someone, but after getting these creepy calls, she's become protective of both of us. She told the caller exactly where they could stick their intervention and immediately called Sarah to warn her. Sarah and I had a long conversation last night about whether we should keep seeing each other. She's scared, not of me, but of what my mother might do next. I told her I'd understand if she wanted to walk away, that this level of insanity isn't fair to her. But Sarah surprised me. She said that watching how I've handled all of this, seeing how I've tried to protect her even when it meant potentially losing her, has actually made her trust me more, not less. She said my mother's attempts to convince her I was damaged had backfired because she could see for herself how hard I've worked to build a healthy life despite everything. We're taking things slow, but we're staying together. Sarah moved back in with her sister for now, and I'm driving up there on weekends. It's not ideal, but it feels like the safest option until we see how the legal stuff plays out. My dad has been incredible through all of this. He's offered to help with legal costs and has even been talking to some of his old contacts about potentially helping Sarah find a job in her sister's city if she wants to relocate permanently. I think he feels guilty about not doing more to stop my mother years ago. The restraining order hearing is next week. My lawyer thinks we have a strong case, especially with the recording and the evidence of third-party harassment. Part of me just wants this to be over, but another part of me knows my mother won't stop until someone forces her to. I keep thinking about what she said to Sarah about me being too damaged for a relationship. Maybe she's right. But for the first time in years, I'm with someone who sees all the chaos surrounding my life and chooses to stay anyway. That has to count for something. Update 7. The restraining order hearing went better than expected. The judge was visibly disturbed by the recording of my mother attempting to bribe Sarah, and the extended harassment evidence sealed the deal. We got a 5-year order, which felt like a massive relief. For about 3 weeks, things were actually quiet. Sarah had found a job in her sister's city and was settling in well. We were doing the long-distance thing, and honestly, it was working. I was finally starting to believe we might actually get through this. Then my brother called. I hadn't heard from him in months. We've maintained a cordial but distant relationship since he chose to reconnect with our mother years ago. His call came at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, which immediately put me on edge. "You need to know something," he said without any greeting. "Mom's been dating someone." A guy named Marcus. He's been asking a lot of questions about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of questions? Personal stuff. Your address, your schedule, where you work now. She told him you've been unfairly cruel to her and that she's worried about your mental state. She showed him those old family photos, the ones from when we were kids, and apparently convinced him that you're some kind of danger to yourself. I felt that familiar cold dread creeping in. Why are you telling me this now? There was a long pause. Because Marcus called me yesterday. He wanted to know if I thought you might hurt Sarah. He said Mom was worried that your abandonment issues might make you violent in relationships. He was talking about doing some kind of intervention. The pieces started clicking together in my head. How long have they been dating? About 2 months, from what I can tell. But here's the thing, I did some digging. Marcus isn't just some random guy. He's a private investigator. My blood went cold. What? I found his business license online. He specializes in family reunification services and missing persons cases. I think Mom hired him first, and then started sleeping with him to keep him invested in her cause. I sat down hard on my couch, trying to process this. My mother had essentially weaponized a romantic relationship with a pie to get around the restraining order. It was brilliant and absolutely terrifying. There's more, my brother continued. Marcus has been following you. He's got photos, detailed logs of your routine. And he's been to Sarah's sister's city. Twice. Jesus Christ. I think they're planning something. Mom's been talking about how she needs to save you from Sarah before you do something you'll regret. She's convinced Marcus that Sarah is somehow manipulating you against your own family. I immediately called Sarah, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Then I called her sister. No answer. Panic started setting in, so I jumped in my car and started driving the 2 hours to where Sarah was staying. About halfway there, my phone rang. It was Sarah, but something was wrong with her voice. Hey, she said, but it sounded forced. Careful. I'm fine, but there's been a situation. What happened? Someone called my work today claiming to be from a psychiatric crisis team. They said they'd received reports that I was in danger from someone with violent tendencies and a history of military training. They wanted to do a welfare check. My heart was pounding. Are you okay? I'm fine, but it gets worse. When I got home from work, there was a man in my sister's driveway. He said he was a private investigator working on a family crisis intervention. He had photos of us together, and he knew things. Personal things about both of us that he shouldn't know. Where are you now? At the police station with my sister. We're filing a report, but the officer said that since the pie hasn't technically done anything illegal, there's not much they can do unless he actually threatens us directly. I pulled into a gas station parking lot because my hands were shaking too badly to keep driving safely. I'm coming to get you. No, wait. There's something else. The pie, Marcus, he left his business card. But on the back, someone had written a phone number and call if you want the truth about his family. I called it. My stomach lurched. Sarah, no. You shouldn't have, it was your mother. She answered on the first ring, like she was waiting for my call. She was crying, saying she was worried about me, that you've been lying to me about your mental health. She said you've been violent before, that the army discharged you for psychological reasons, not because of downsizing. I felt like I was going to be sick. Sarah, that's not true. You know that's not true. I know, but she was very convincing, and she had details about your therapy that she shouldn't know. She said if I really cared about you, I'd help her get you into a treatment program she'd found. She wanted to meet with me to coordinate an intervention. Please tell me you said no. Of course I said no. But she's not going to stop, is she? And now she's got this Marcus guy doing her dirty work, and he's a professional. How are we supposed to fight this? I sat in that gas station parking lot for 20 minutes after we hung up, just trying to think. My mother had escalated beyond anything I'd imagined possible. She was systematically trying to destroy my relationship by convincing Sarah I was dangerous, all while using a private investigator to circumvent the restraining order. When I finally got to Sarah's sister's place, I found them both researching Marcus online. What they'd discovered was disturbing. His business specialized in what he called family crisis intervention, but looking at the testimonials on his website, it seemed like he was often hired by estranged family members to manipulate situations in their favor. Sarah's sister, Emma, looked up when I walked in. Your mother is completely insane, but she's also really smart. This guy doesn't just investigate, he orchestrates. Look at this. She showed me Marcus's website, specifically a case study about how he'd helped a concerned parent reconnect with an alienated adult child by documenting the child's concerning behavior patterns and presenting evidence to extended family members who then pressured the child to reconcile. It was exactly what my mother was trying to do to me. The really sick part? According to my brother, my mother had convinced Marcus that she was the victim in all of this. She'd painted me as an unstable veteran who was lashing out at his loving mother because of untreated trauma. She'd probably shown him carefully curated evidence, my therapy appointments, my job struggles, maybe even the restraining order itself, and spun it all as proof that I needed help, not protection from her. That night, lying on Emma's couch while Sarah slept in the guest room, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. My mother wasn't just trying to get me back anymore, she was trying to destroy my ability to have relationships with anyone else. If she couldn't be my mother, she was going to make sure no one else could love me either. And the worst part? Part of me was starting to wonder if she might actually succeed.